friends, since gaining independence in 1947, India has faced an ongoing problem of corruption highlighted by a string of infamous scandals that have shaken the nation's conscience. Let us explore some scandals that symbolize the long-standing issues with India's governance. The Jeep scandal of 1948 shook independent India, damaging the reputation of the new government that was under Jawaharlal Nehru. It resulted in the resignation of Defense Minister Krishna Menon. The scandal exposed corruption in the Indian Army's procurement of jeeps, revealing the weaknesses of the newly established democratic system. Following India's independence, the government encountered numerous obstacles, such as the requirement to modernize and equip its military. The Indian Army wanted to purchase jeeps for different operational needs. The scandal unfolded through corrupt dealings and kickbacks in the procurement process of the jeeps. Some government officials, including those within the Defense Ministry, allegedly colluded with private suppliers to inflate the prices of the jeeps and siphon off funds through illicit means. Kickbacks and bribes were reportedly exchanged to secure contracts, bypassing fair and transparent procurement practices. The scandal involved several notable individuals such as government officials, defense personnel, and private suppliers. Krishna Menon, who was the defense minister, faced heavy scrutiny for his alleged role or negligence in overseeing corrupt procurement practices. His resignation caused a political upheaval and questioned the government's dedication to fighting corruption. The 1948 Jeep scandal had far reaching effects on politics and administration. The government's inability to maintain integrity and transparency in defense procurement eroded public trust. The scandal emphasized the pressing necessity for effective oversight mechanisms and raised the issue related to ethical governance practices in reducing corruption and uphold accountability in public administration. Although Krishnaman resigned and the government reflected on the scandal, its lasting effect on reforms and anti-corruption measures remains uncertain. This scandal is an obvious example of the initial difficulties faced by independent India in its efforts to uphold honesty and transparency in governance. The Mundra scandal arose in 1957. It centered on Haridas Mundra, a Calcutta-based businessman and stockbroker. Mundra took advantage of the post-independence economic boom in India to engage in widespread financial manipulation and malpractices. He borrowed money from banks using the same collateral repeatedly to leverage his capital. He used these funds to carry out rigging of stock and share prices through excessive speculation on the Calcutta Stock Exchange. His actions artificially inflated share prices of several companies he controlled. The scam began unraveling in 1957 when the widespread financial irregularities could no longer be concealed. It emerged that Mundra had embezzled around 1.2 crore rupees from the Life Insurance Corporation of India. He also defrauded other banks and investors. The scandal exposed the vulnerability of India's newly independent financial systems and lack of adequate regulatory oversight. It sparked a crisis of confidence in the stock markets. The government had to step in and enforce strict economic reforms to restore credibility. The scandal highlighted the nexus between big business, politicians, and government officials who turned a blind eye or actively facilitated Mundra's fraudulent activities for kickbacks and bribes. High profile figures who were implicated included members of the ruling Congress party and bureaucrats. The Mundra case underscored the dangers of crony capitalism taking root so soon after independence. It served as an early warning about the need to combat financial crimes and curb the undue influence of wealthy entrepreneurs over the political class. However, such patterns of corruption continue to persist till this day. The scandal eventually led to Mundra's conviction in 1959 on charges of fraud and embezzlement, but he only served 4 years in prison. The Bofo scandal was a major corruption case in the 1980s and 1990s. It involved allegations of kickbacks paid in a $1.4 billion deal between the Indian government and Swedish arms company Bofors for the supply of field howitzer artillery guns or the field guns. In 1986, the Indian government agreed to purchase 410 155 mm Bofors field guns to modernize its army's artillery. However, the Swedish state radio soon aired allegations that Bofors had paid kickbacks worth Rs 64 crores to Indian politicians, defense officials, and a powerful Delhi-based business family to secure the contract. This set off a major political storm in India. The key accused were Ottavio Quattrocchi, an Italian businessman representing Bofors, and several high-ranking officials from the Indian government and Swedish company. It was alleged that Quattrocchi was the conduit for routing the bribery money to Indian politicians and officials. Bofo scandal sparked outrage as it exposed the extent of corruption plaguing the highest levels of India's Congress-led government at that time, headed by Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. The Central Bureau of Investigation or CBI conducted several inquiries and investigations, but a direct trail of evidence could never be fully established. So the main accused could not be prosecuted. However, several Indian government officials and politicians were forced to resign over the scandal. It remained a major political albatross for the Congress party over the years as the opposition kept reviving the issue. The case ended up lingering for over 2 decades in Indian courts. Nobody was convicted. The Bofo scandal profoundly damaged India's reputation globally. It shook the nation's trust in the probity of deals with foreign weapon manufacturers. A strong belief prevailed that graft had compromised the nation's defense preparedness. In one of India's biggest admission and recruitment scandals, the Madhya Pradesh Professional Examination Board manipulated entrance examination for various professional courses and government jobs. In 2013, the MPPEB's recruitment process revealed irregularities. The scam exposed a pervasive network of corruption involving politicians, senior officials, bureaucrats, and businessmen. Candidates were accused of paying large bribes to manipulate entrance exams and secure admissions and jobs. The modus operandi of the scam was a multi-pronged assault on the integrity of the examination processes. It involved rigging of entrance exam question papers to leak the contents beforehand. Also, answer sheets were falsified to inflate scores. Imposters were employed to take exams on behalf of candidates. Exam results were manipulated to alter the final scores. Of course, price played a major role in getting favorable results or securing admissions through illicit means. Politicians, government officials, and business persons were involved in the scam. Among those implicated in the scandals were government ministers, MPs, MLAs, and high ranking bureaucrats. The far-reaching Vyapam scam affected the Madhya Pradesh government's reputation and raised concerns about the state's education and recruitment system's integrity. This also caused public anger and demonstrations demanding justice and accountability for the scam victims. After the scam was exposed, many investigations uncovered the full extent of corruption and prosecute all involved. In 2015, the case was transferred to the Central Bureau of Investigation following a Supreme Court order. A special task force examined the scam. The arrests included government officials, middlemen, and candidates who were part of the scam. The accused faced charge sheets and trials in courts across the nation. Many individuals implicated in the Vyapam scam have been convicted and handed different jail terms. A few individuals have been acquitted or had charges dropped because of lack of evidence or mistakes in the legal process. The legal proceedings regarding the Vyapam scam are still in progress. based on the latest information. The matter is still under investigation by the CBI and other agencies with ongoing trials in various courts. The Vyapam scam serves as a grim reminder of the widespread corruption in India's education and recruitment systems. Despite the progress in investigating and prosecuting those involved, the complete impact of the scam and the accountability of all perpetrators are yet to be established. A shocking revelation has exposed a murky scheme that enabled anonymous corporate donations to political parties in India through secret electoral bonds. This scam has highlighted the dangerous overlap between money and politics, prompting concerns about the integrity of the nation's electoral system. The electoral bonds mechanism was introduced by the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party or BJP government in 2017. The purpose of these financial instruments was to encourage transparency and accountability in political funding. However, the truth has turned out to be quite the opposite, as the plan has allowed people and companies to secretly donate huge amounts of money to political parties without being questioned by the public. This tantamounts to bribery because most of the donations have gone to the ruling party, and it is now coming out that these donations were made after the the national agencies raided their premises. The scandal's magnitude became clear when the State Bank of India or SBI released electoral bond purchase data as mandated by the Supreme Court. The numbers are shocking. Various entities have purchased a mind-boggling $1.7 billion worth of electoral bonds since 2019. What's even more surprising is that a lot of these donors ended up getting lucrative government contracts, suggesting possible quid pro quo arrangements. The legitimacy of these donors' financial dealings is in question because of their involvement in federal police investigations. The Indian National Congress and other opposition parties have accused the BJP of using law enforcement agencies to extort businesses. According to the data dump, there is a clear contrast in electoral bond receipts, with the BJP receiving nearly four times the total of the next six parties. Opposition leaders have accurately labeled the scandal as Independent India's largest scandal, criticizing the BJP for compromising democracy through corporate money. The Supreme Court of India has deemed the electoral bond scheme unconstitutional and manifestly arbitrary, creating shockwaves in the political landscape. The scandal's ramifications are extensive and may have enduring effects on the nation's democracy. Electoral bonds have been criticized for making political parties subservient to corporate interests and secretive donors. Advocates for transparency have criticized the lack of transparency in the electoral bond system, stating that it undermines democratic principles of accountability and fairness. The shocking sums and possible exchange agreements have further fueled the controversy, sparking calls for a total reform of the political finance system. With the general elections approaching, India is overshadowed by the secret electoral bonds scandal. The data dump's complete impact is still unraveling, but it has already ignited a heated discussion about the integrity of the electoral system. The undue influence of corporate money, if not addressed, could erode public trust in democracy and create a governance system controlled by wealth rather than the people's voice. The Government and Election Commission of India must now implement strong reforms to restore transparency and accountability in political funding. This could involve actions like requiring the public disclosure of political donations over a certain limit, placing strict restrictions on corporate contributions, and enhancing oversight to prevent abuse of power and alleged quid pro quo arrangements in the secret electoral bond scandal. The scandal is an obvious reminder that the electoral process is crucial for democracy. In facing this challenging period, India needs to acknowledge the tough realities and act decisively to protect its democratic institutions. It could determine the future of the world's largest democracy. The long list of corruption scandals in India highlights the pressing need for systemic reforms to address corruption, promote transparency, and uphold institutional integrity. Although each scandal is a separate instance of wrongdoing, together they highlight how corruption is widespread and require unified efforts to eradicate it. As India progresses, it is vital to address corruption, which is crucial for realizing the nation's true potential and upholding democratic principles and good governance. One is eagerly waiting for the culprits in the latest scandal to be arrested and prosecuted in the courts of law, convicted and punished.